Poetry and memory are mother and daughter. The old mythologies tell us that. In the time before records, before writing even, poetry was the means by which great events and the emotions they stirred were embedded in the common memory. War and poetry are ancient companions too. Every nation and tribe recorded its battles, the victories and the losses in verse. The starting point of poetry in the whole Western world is the Iliad of the blind bard Homer, the epic of the siege and fall of Troy, a war poem. Today, in the world of Facebook, Twitter, the rush of the internet, the connection remains: poetry, memory, and war. We have just had the ceremonies of Remembrance Day to bring this home. Aside perhaps only from the symbol of the red poppy, in Flanders Fields is the most concise and searing evocation of what most people feel, what they would like to be able to express about the mixed sorrows of those who suffered and died in war. Many of us learned that short, sad, and kindly poem in school, and however many times we've heard it read or recited it silently ourselves when occasion summoned, it doesn't tire. It retains the power to strike the heart and convey respect as only poetry can. The First World War saw a turning in poetry, from celebration of heroes and the mighty deeds of battle lords and kings, the note of triumph, to a wider call: the burdens of the foot soldiers, the infantry, the men in the trenches, the hard, bitter suffering of war. Wilfred Owen's poems, Owen himself died just 7 days before Armistice Day, tell their story, as no one before him had quite done, with pity as his theme and not celebration. Rupert Brooke, another poet of the First War, "If I should die, think only this of me," captured the great wave of loss that overwhelmed England for all its young soldiers dying in some foreign field. Grief powers patriotism, and poetry powers grief. We saw that when the words of the young Canadian airman and poet, who also died in war at only 21, were taken by President Ronald Reagan to mark the tragic explosion of the Challenger. The famous phrase from McGee's High Flight about slipping the surly bonds of earth was the most poignant of that address. And when we pledge, lest we forget, the words of these poets are there, so to speak, to help us honor that pledge. Every November 11th, as much as the ceremonies, the music, the moment of silence, the poetry of that day yokes memory with emotion. Now, poetry isn't prayer, but it is sometimes so very close to it, as in John McCrae's unforgettable lament, that we cannot note the difference. In Flanders Fields is a wonderwork of that kind, a flow of direct, clear words which wander that rare territory between tribute and tears, and, once heard, never desert the memory. For The National, I'm Rex Murphy.